Hi, everyone. My name is Joy, and I work at the Bowie branch for the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. And welcome to Up and Out, a monthly program for LGBTQ plus teens and community members to provide information and resources through discussion with community leaders, fellow members of the community, and organizations that focus on and highlight the LGBTQ plus experience. Today, I'm joined by Oscar and Susie to have a conversation about their experiences. So we're going to start with a very, simple but not simple question. So who are you and what is your story?
Take it away, Susie.
First? Okay, that's fine. Well, hi, I'm Susie, pronouns she, her. So who am I? I'm a school teacher. I'm also a non-binary trans woman. I teach high school in Howard County at Centennial High School. So my story, let's see, I spent the first 50 years of my life with no earthly clue that I might be trans. So it was like putting the pieces of a puzzle together. I always went for books and movies and music and magazines that were meant for women, and most of my friends were girls. And I felt comfortable in women's spaces and not in men's spaces. But I never put those together and said, well, I wonder what that says about me. Even as the puzzle pieces started coming together, it took me months before I believed it. I didn't actually believe it. And I didn't fit the standard narrative. You know what they say about, when you read something in the newspaper, because I never cross-dressed. This whole thing about feeling like a female in a man's body, I never felt that. I still don't. I didn't know my gender at a young age. Didn't ask my parents for a dress. Never really hated my body, though since my teen years, I did wish my body were a different shape. I've lived full-time as a female since 2013. I had bottom surgery in 2014, and I'm liking life. So that's my story.
Oh. All right, Oscar.
Oh boy. My name is Oscar. I am a non-binary trans man, so I go by he, they. I was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So I moved here in 2015. If you guys know anything about the Middle East, it's very like gender roles are like a thing, women do lady things and men do men things in the culture, right? So I grew up, for example, the only men I had ever met or been around were my brothers and my father and my uncles every now and then when I'd see them. I had never met my first or spoken to my first male that I wasn't related to till I was 18. So basically I grew up female in Saudi Arabia, and then sometime in 2014, I just, after years of I just knew, as Susie said, you don't feel comfortable in that gender, your assigned gender space, right? You feel like something's off, something's weird, you're not quite comfortable in it. So I was never quite comfortable in the space with females all around me, and that's all I ever had around me growing up in Saudi was just women. And sometime in 2014, I started to hear about oh, there's a thing called transitioning. I always used to tell myself, oh my God, if I just woke up a boy one day, I'd be so happy. I know a lot of people, some people the narrative doesn't fit them, where, as Susie says, she didn't feel too much, body dysmorphia or anything like that. But I did, absolutely. As soon as I hit puberty, I was like, oh my God, what are these? Oh no, this is the worst. Oh God, I don't want to wear even jeans that were tailored for women's bodies. I was like, I know this fits me, and the men's pants don't fit me, but I would rather wear the men's pants. Anyways, that's aside. So in 2014, I started to really learn about transitioning, and I was like, I think this is something I'm gonna do. And of course, where I grew up, transitioning is against the law. Like it's just not socially acceptable whatsoever, religiously acceptable at all either. So I moved. I came to the U.S. in 2015, and that's when I started living as male. I started testosterone in 2016, and then I had top surgery at the end of 2016. I'm an artist and I work for Apple. Just the side thing there.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. So in your experiences, what has had the most impact on you, which has made you the person you are today? And we're going to start with Oscar because Susie bravely went first.
Very true. That's really true. Susie's a trooper.
Yes.
I think the biggest experience was starting from scratch. Like I moved here and I had to rebuild my gender identity. I had to rebuild my life. It was a setback in that I didn't know anyone. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know who I was. But if you flip it around and you look at it a different way, I had a chance to start absolutely fresh. Nobody knew who I was. I could just say, yeah, I'm Oscar. And they'd be like, okay. Sure, I don't know who you are. Like I didn't grow up here. I don't have ties here. So to start, it was really, really difficult. And I think just redoing everything, either redoing or undoing bits of myself, bits of like how I interacted socially with people. Just that move was the biggest impact on who I am right now, and it made me understand that flexibility is very important, and then that flexibility ended up translating into some of my identity as well. So the identity is also flexible, and I'm like, anything goes now.
That's a good slogan. Yeah. How about you, Susie?
Okay. So let's see. I would say, so when I was in graduate school, it was in my mid-20s, and I was, hardcore techie at that point, and studying computer science, and very much a geek. And I wanted to do something, because when you're in graduate school, you're kind of laser focused on your research and on your work and on your area of study. And I wanted to do something totally different. So in my spare time, I volunteered to answer phones for a crisis hotline, which was something I'd never done anything like that before. And they trained us. I mean, they gave us, I think it was like 20-something hours of classroom training, and then 6 hours of on the job, of actually, hands-on training. And I actually was very good at it. And it kind of opened my eyes to myself as somebody who didn't have to be like totally technically oriented, and could that I had an empathetic side, and that I could be there for people. I for a long time I put it away, I put it aside, but in 2016 I actually started answering phones. There's a hotline called Trans Lifeline, which is a hotline only for trans people. Only trans people call it, and only trans people answer the phone. And so I've been an operator there, doing a 2-hour-a-week shift since 2016. So I think the hotline work was really something that helped me get in touch with a kind of an empathetic, sensitive side.
Wow, that sounds very both fulfilling but also very intense. Yeah,
Definitely intense.
I'm sure you've helped so many people.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you both kind of touched on when you started to feel kind of uncomfortable with identity. do you think, because you already answered the first part of the question, like when did you start your gender journey? But I've read things and I've heard things that are like, oh, like someone can definitely be too young to not know or to not identify with their assigned gender. Do you agree with that? And what would you say to someone who thinks that someone can be too young to think this or to explore this?
Well, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, my daughter, and she's not trans, she's cisgender. She knew her gender at age 2 or 3. You know, nobody batted an eyelash when, you know, she so I'm a girl, and she liked being a girl. So I don't, it doesn't make any sense to say, well, you don't know your gender at that age. If you don't know your gender, who does, right? Nobody's going to know your gender better than you. But here's the observation that I have: is nobody ever tells little cis kids that cis meaning somebody who isn't trans. Nobody ever tells them you're too young to know your gender. Nobody ever, when parents put a pretty pink frilly dress on their 2-year-old girl, nobody says that 2-year-old girl is just too young to put a frilly dress on. How does she know she's a girl? Nobody ever says that. It's only trans people that are thought not to know their gender at a young age. Like somehow by being trans, that makes us confused. Well, whereas, if you're not trans, well, then you're not confused. And I definitely do have trouble with that thought. That seems very transphobic to me, the thought that, cis people are better at knowing their gender than we are. I mean, why should they be? Why should it be different from them than for us?
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Oscar?
Absolutely, everything that Susie just said. I think I kind of want to hear a little bit more about how Susie didn't, fit the narrative, because I'm very much like I knew it in kindergarten. I knew I was like, I'm gonna play with the boys. I belong there. There was an instance where, like a class photo, we had to take a class photo. And in my country, girls and boys are together until the 3rd grade, then they separate for life. So in kindergarten, the teachers were like, okay, boys stand on this side for a class photo and girls stand on this side for a class photo. And I went and I stood with the boys. I had no idea. I don't know what genitals are. I don't know. I just know that that's me. That's them. That's me. It's the same thing. So I very much fit that, like, I knew when I was little what my gender was. I didn't have words for it, but Susie, I don't know. It seems like you didn't really have that experience. So what is that? What was that like? And if, like, would you tell your younger self, you're confused or not confused, but like, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I mean, for me, I mean, I can't fathom what it would be like to be a certain body and look at people whose bodies are different than yours and say, I really should, that's my real gender. But I did have, experiences that were unusual. I just didn't know they were unusual. I remember I had 2 friends when I was in nursery school. When you're in nursery school, you don't know any better. You just do what it feels good. And they were both girls. And I remember my best friend when I was in 2nd grade, until people started picking on us, was a girl also. So somehow, some part of me, some wiring in my brain knew that it was girls I should belong with. But I was just a slow kid in the class. I was too dumb to pay any attention to that. And it's certainly the case that when I was a teenager, I started getting weird feelings about my body, because I started having, I'm attracted to girls way more than I'm attracted to guys. No offense, guys, you're fine, but girls are what interests me. And so I would, when you're a teen and you meet girls, start wanting to know something about their bodies. And I began, for reasons that I could not articulate, I wanted their body. I wanted my body to be like theirs. I didn't want my body to be like me. I didn't want to be covered with hair. I wanted to have breasts. I didn't want what I had below. I wanted what girls had below. So, and I didn't attach much importance to that. And then, that kind of grew as I got older and went into adulthood, is feeling like, I really wish I could have been born a girl. That would have been the best thing to happen. But on the other hand, everybody I knew wanted something they couldn't have. Lots of people wanted to be astronauts. They were never going to be astronauts. Lots of people wanted to be rock stars. They're never going to be rock stars. So, I figured this is just what I want to be that I'm never going to be.
Yeah. That was a great question, Oscar. What would you tell your younger self? That one always gets me, and I feel like I'm going to start crying because it's like, oh. Oscar, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh my God. I did not expect that question to be flip back on me. I think I would tell my younger self to just, I would not change. I was very much a rebel, and I didn't care. Like, I knew what felt right. So I would just encourage my younger self, to just keep exploring, take your time. It's your life. I wish I could have told my younger self, you're living this life. Nobody else is living this life. Do what makes you happy, so long as you're not hurting anybody else. There was a lot of oh, but I have to fit in, and I have to do this, and I have to family and religion and culture. And I think I would, yeah, absolutely just be do what you're doing. You're doing great, sweetie.
Doing great, sweetie. Oh, that's wonderful on all levels. It looks like we do have one question in the chat. Do you want to answer it? Or I'll ask it, and then, yeah. So someone, Vivian asked, do people ever make fun of you?
That's a good one, Vivian. Susie, no?
Susie says,
no, people never make. Okay, it depends on what you mean by making fun of me. Certainly, when I was first transitioning and I didn't know how not to blend in, and I was first taking hormones, and so my body was changing, and so people would look at me, and they at some point, early on, they would look at me and they were like, "There's a man who's trying to look like a woman," and people would stare at me and smirk at me and glare at me, depending on how they felt about that. Then after a while, hormones started feminizing me to the point where people would look at me and they would know there was something wrong. They wouldn't quite know what it was, and so they'd stare at me. And every once in a while, it was fun to watch the thought process happen in their head, the grinding of wheels. Because then they would every once in a while, it would be like solving the last clue of a crossword puzzle. Oh. That never happens anymore. Now I just blend in pretty well. Nobody pretty much ever notices. On the other hand, so nobody makes fun of me specifically. On the other hand, on social media and just about everywhere where I go online, I come across people making fun of trans people and saying just the most absolutely horrible things that make me want to climb through my computer and hit somebody over the head with a heavy hammer. But it's not directed to me personally.
yeah.
That sucks, Susie. I feel you though. It's less of a physical thing, I think, for me, and I think for most female to male people on testosterone, it's a little easier because we're just short guys for the most part. We're just short and we look young. And that's, for the most part, it's less physical. It's more I'm pretty open, and I don't come out to people, but I'm not shy to be yeah, well, when I had surgery, blah blah blah. And I'll get looks of oh, you're one of those, you're probably confused, or I'll get made fun of if I try to, for a while, I don't know, this is gonna age me a little bit, but I was like, I don't know, I'm not on Facebook really, and I had got Snapchat for a bit because someone told me to get Snapchat, and you know the dog filters and whatever, they had like filters and stuff, and I had like a flower crown filter on once, and I posted it, and someone was like, "You worked so hard to become a man, and now you're gonna go and put a flower crown on? You must be confused." I'm like, yeah, but do you understand what you're saying? That doesn't. Can you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's more of like everything you do is scrutinized because you've made this huge life decision, and now they think that you owe it to them to follow through with their idea of what it is to be male or female. And I think that's most of it is I get made fun of because they think I'm confused still, and maybe have some regrets or something, but I don't. That's it.
Good. No regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets. Yes. Oh my gosh. That movie's so funny. Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day about gender, which is like that conversation could probably be like 10 hours or more because there's so much packed in there. And I was telling them how I took this class about gender, sexuality, and language, which is really interesting, and how even before we're out of the womb, people have already decided what gender you are. As soon as people have those really stupid gender reveal parties, people assign it, and it's all in advertising. It's all in. I used to work at Gap, and just like looking at all the baby clothes, I just couldn't. It just really surprised me too that like it just starts so early, and my brain's going in a million directions because I'm like, oh yeah, we're talking about like things that are important, and I think adults don't give enough credit to kids about knowing themselves, and that's why I too get really confused and upset with people who think people are too young to know themselves, and it's just it's frustrating. So we talked a little bit about gender dysphoria or discomfort with being seen as your assigned gender. But on the other hand, which I don't think is talked about enough, is gender euphoria, and times where you just feel like your authentic self and you're like, yeah, like that's me and I'm freaking awesome. So can you share a moment where you felt that gender euphoria?
I'm giving space for Susie. You got one? I got one locked and loaded.
No, I mean, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Because I never really had body dysphoria. There's nothing wrong with my body.
Right.
You know, my body was fine. It just was the wrong shape. You know, and I want it to be a different shape. But I would say my whole life is gender euphoria. You know, just the fact that, you know, back when I was a guy, I was kind of an oafish, geeky, you know, nobody would call me graceful, you know, kind of clumsy, uncoordinated. And I mean, I remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to, you know, I'm going to stand out. There's no way I'm going to blend in as in female spaces. I was wrong. I'm very feminine. And looking at that, it's like, how in the world did that happen? How in the world did this guy, you know, with you know, not a social grace to his name, somehow end up being kind of a dainty woman? But yeah, I mean, it is amazing. And of course, you know, the changes that I've made to my body, and I haven't made that many changes. I've taken hormones and I've gotten bottom surgery, and that's pretty much it. I haven't had any other surgeries. I've had some treatments to help remove like body hair. I mean, facial hair, but I think my body is amazing, and I'm 59, and 59-year-old bodies, there are a lot of ways that they're not amazing, but yeah, I mean, I just about my whole life is gender euphoria.
Oh,
So sweet.
I love that.
That is awesome. I love that. I love that. You know what, Susie? Good for you. I only recently started experiencing gender euphoria, and it's kind of a, I don't know what the root of the euphoria is in my case, only because, oh my God, there's a cat. Yes, there she is. So sweet. So there's physical, gender euphoria, and then there's social gender euphoria. And I don't know if my social gender euphoria is just plain old male privilege now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know if, oh, I'm actually getting seen, heard, I'm listened to, I'm, like all of these things that I never was before. And it makes me happy, but am I happy because I'm being recognized as a male, or am I happy because, like, oh God, like they're recognize me as a male, like, oh no. And like I'm benefiting from this thing that I've never benefited from before. So that the social aspect kind of still, it wigs me out a little bit. I'm not sure whether I should like be happy or like kind of go, oh no, like I didn't check my privilege. But physical, absolutely 100%. It was this one time, I don't remember what store I was in, but I tried to buy a shirt, and the woman was like, are you sure you want to try this on? It's a woman's shirt. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm small. I'm a small guy. I wear like ladies' clothes sometimes because the sizes that they have are smaller, and they just fit better. Because men's clothes, like, they fit like this. And I was like, yeah, I'll just get a large. And I put it on, and the shoulders didn't fit. And she was like, yeah, I told you, like, your shoulders are. And I said, okay, I guess so. I guess these man shoulders couldn't fit in a woman's shirt. That was amazing. So I bought a small man's shirt. It was my first time really like shopping in a regular guy's section. And I was like, okay, this might be happening. And thanks to testosterone, that was all testosterone. Because it really, like, before tea, I was an hourglass figure, like that, and it was the worst. And now I'm like, what? And it's great.
I kind of like having an hourglass figure. I never thought it would be possible. I always, because I had this classic male figure, shoulders and then, straight as an arrow, and I don't have that anymore. It's amazing. What did somebody say? Hormones were like, I mean, it was they likened it to a video game where you mess with the with the character definition mechanics of the game. Taking hormones is like messing with the mechanics, with the character definition mechanics of life.
Yeah. All this to say, of course, I cannot highlight this enough, is that there are men, cis men out there who have hips wider than their shoulders, and there are all kinds of bodies. Just because this is this is how I'm comfortable doesn't mean that that's how men also are. Like, literally, you can still be a man in a man's body and have your hips be wider than your shoulders. Like, that happens all the time. It is a normal thing. And I'm also trying to retrain, because every now and then I'll look in the mirror and I'm like, my hips are looking a little big today, and then I gotta be like, but have you guys seen Oscar Isaac, this actor? Like, look him up. He's got like a killer figure. And he's a guy. He's a cis guy. So I gotta I just gotta keep reminding myself,
Taking a moment to Google that.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was in Star Wars.
There you go.
Damn. Anyway, Luna. I'm so sorry. Okay, she's gone now. She is. Thank you for sharing your euphoria with us. I do have another question in the chat. So it is from O, and they said, what are your favorite queer-friendly spaces in DC or Maryland? Either explicitly LGBTQ plus spaces or just spaces you love being.
I don't know any. If you hear of any, let me know.
Yeah, I don't know of any exclusive, like exclusively LGBT, but I know there are plenty of like, well, there's one in particular actually. Let me find the name of this. I don't know, because of the pandemic, I don't know if it's open now, but it's definitely queer friendly. Like it's a basically an art house slash theater downtown Baltimore. Oh gosh, I think it's called the Creative Alliance. You guys probably know it. Anyways, it's called the Creative Alliance, and it's really just an art gallery. They hold shows and like concerts sometimes, and they've got like live-in artists that display their art, and it's super queer friendly, LGBT, like that. It's a safe space. It really is a safe space if you want to go and enjoy art and be with just really awesome people. I really recommend that place. Of course, I don't know what's happening now with the pandemic, but at some point, the Creative Alliance is awesome.
Cool. In the comments, Teresa said, if you've been to a league of her own, have they been trans friendly? I've never heard of that.
I'm not sure. Is it weird if I Google this?
No.
It sounds really familiar, but I don't
Google
know.
it.
League of her own. Susie, anything?
No, I didn't reach for Google.
Well,
Uh-uh.
no, I can't say that I've heard of that.
All right. So what advice would you give someone who is struggling with their gender identity right now, and how can they best deal with negativity, bullying, or not being accepted? Oscar?
No, okay. I see. I just want to give space because I know Susie's got a lot. Susie's like Susie is. If you guys don't know, Susie is just a fountain of knowledge and wisdom, and I'm just say something first because it's gonna be so much more profound than what I'm about to say. But if you insist, I would say, well, basically what I told my younger self, right? Take your time. There's no right or wrong answer in terms of your identity. It's always changing. Like there are very few people who are like, yeah, I'm this, once they realize that there's some kind of non-cis. There's very few that are just like, yeah, I'm this and this is what I'm going to be. There's always some kind of like, even if it's a little bit, some kind of like change or growth, or so just allow that. Give yourself space to have that happen. Don't feel like you have to, like, if you've come out and you've said that you are this to people, don't be afraid to say that you are something else to people. If you decide to change your mind, or if you grow into something else or someone else, I wouldn't be afraid of that, because if that's true to who you are in that moment, then guess what? That's true to who you are, and that you don't owe anybody else any other explanation. And in terms of bullying, of course, if you're getting like physically bullied, like a trusted adult, authority figure in the school that you're at, someone that you can trust, because that, first of all, that shouldn't happen, right? That, and you just get that out of the way first. Physically, you should be keeping yourself safe. In terms of emotional bullying, it sucks. I've been there. It really hurts. It really hurts. And I know this is gonna sound cheesy, but it really helps to just remember that, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they're going through. I had someone who bullied me mercilessly in school. She was a she, he is now a he. You don't know what people are going through with their own struggles. You don't know if they're projecting onto you because they themselves are queer and they're getting something from someone else. So like, just try to be understanding, stay away from harm, but also like, this is your life. It's what's important to you. It's how you feel. It's what makes you happy, and there's a lot of noise out there. Try to not just try not to.
I'm ready for the fountain.
Yes.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I have a lot. You give me a lot to live up to, Oscar.
What was that?
You give me a lot to live up to.
Oh, did I really? Oh, there you go.
All right. So I guess I mean the first thing to keep in mind is that being trans is awesome. Trans people are superheroes. We put up with things that no ordinary human being puts up with. We see things that no ordinary human being sees. We are wise in ways that no ordinary human being is wise. I mean, we've seen the gender world from multiple sides, whereas most people, cis people, they've only seen it from one side. So we're superheroes. We're awesome, and be proud of that. Be proud of what it is to be trans. In terms of bullying, I would say first of all, find your allies. Wherever you are, there are going to be trans people because trans people are everywhere. Even in Saudi Arabia, where Oscar grew up, where they claim to not have any trans people, they have trans people. They have they have a whole country full of trans people. They just don't know it. So trans people are everywhere. Find your allies. In my high school where I teach, I am the staff advisor to the GSA, Gay Straight Alliance, or nowadays they're liking to call it Sexuality and Gender Alliance, or SAGA, but it's the same thing. Find one of those in your, if you're in school, find one of those in school. If you can't find one, if there isn't one, make one, and people will come because, like I said, queer people are everywhere. And in terms of being bullied, especially if you're in school, if you're in high school or something like that, you actually legally, by law, your school has an obligation to keep you safe while you're at school. So if the people who are the officials at your school are not keeping you safe, they're not doing their job. Sometimes it helps to get an advocate or a more powerful person to make sure they do their job. If you're lucky enough to have one of those, mama bear and papa bear type parents, who will thunder in through the front door and demand it. If not, there are, most schools have adults who are, just about every school has a queer teacher somewhere. Find them, or even just a queer affirming teacher, somebody who can go in and take your side and say, do your job and protect this person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes to it all. Thank you. That was an amazing fountain, Susie.
You delivered. I knew it.
Keep it coming. So, you answered the next question, basically, like how to start finding resources. Do you all know of any resources right now that someone can use if they don't have a person in their life that they can share their journey with?
I don't know of any like in-person groups or spaces, but the internet. I mean, when I was starting out, I made a Discord account, and there are Discords. If you don't know what Discord is, it's just a place where people can get together and chat about any specific subject. Like there are Discord groups for like video games and anime and TV shows and whatever. And there are Discord groups separated by age group for queer individuals, trans individuals, all kinds. And it's something that really it's just a couple of clicks away of your keyboard, and it helped a lot. It helped a lot. I just met people from when I was first starting out here. I didn't know anyone, but as strange as it is, my allies were like people in Sweden and people in Australia that were also going through the same thing. But we were just met on these Discords and just talked about it, and they were my safe space for a while.
Yeah, the internet's vast and amazing. Do you have any resources to share, Susie?
I mean, I like I said, find GSAs where you are. I mean, most colleges have them. Most high schools have them. Most communities have something. I have to say, I'm a little bit disappointed in Howard County where I live. There really isn't much for adults, though there is a support group for trans adults that yours truly runs. But there isn't much else. But at least there's that. So just about everywhere you go, there's going to be somewhere you can go to meet other trans people. And it takes a little bit of effort to find those places, but definitely find those places.
Nice. So a couple of new questions have come in. Excuse me. Peggy would like to know, what is the best way for an ally to support a trans person?
Oscar's got nothing. Oh my goodness. I have to say I don't have a lot either. I mean, it really is what the particular trans person asks of you, because every trans person is different and may want different things from their allies. So I will say right now, the atmosphere in this country is uniquely toxic. I have never seen anything like this before. More than half of the states have passed a law or are trying to pass a law within the last few weeks and months, controlling or making difficult some aspect of young trans people's lives. And we need, more than ever, we need cis people and allies to speak out and say this is not okay, because right now this is going on pretty much unchecked. And so any little bit way you can help amplify a trans person's voice or make your own voice heard, that the kind of laws that they're trying to pass aren't okay. It's I don't know whether it's going to help, but certainly the silence that we're hearing now is not helping.
Mm-hmm.
I think just listen to them. If I had people that just listened, didn't try to offer advice, because most people, if you're talking to someone who's not trans, someone who's just cis, well, not that it's just cis, but someone who's cis, they're not gonna, I don't expect them to give me answers. I just want someone to listen. So allies, just listen, take in, accept, try as much as possible to I don't know how best to put this, not question their questioning. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to lead them into an answer, because that's maybe it's not time, like I know you just want to be helpful, but in the end, it's their own journey, and it's something that they need to go through, basically on their own, but not on their own, because they've got you to, kind of like a sounding board, right? Yeah, it would just be to listen, and then to encourage whatever growth may happen, whatever change, whatever path it may take. They might want to be called Jeremy one day and then go, I don't actually like that name. Call me Tim. And then you know what you're going to do. You're going to call them Tim. And you're not going to ask questions because that's what that's what they're experiencing. And I feel like that's trying to solve is not always a great idea. But just being there is always a good idea.
I like that. I agree. Yeah. Thank you both. Nick would like to know, in your opinion, how can libraries be more proactive about visibly supporting the trans community?
I mean, you guys doing like this stuff like this is awesome. I mean, this is one like virtual stuff for, people to come in and just have a safe space to talk. Once the world hopefully is back to a place where we can all be in person again, it's just maybe maybe highlighting different trans storytellers, or I know that there are a bunch of like trans or non-binary kids books, like readings for those. I think those are great. I've attended one of them and it was adorable, and kids are just wonderful, and I think those spaces are really healthy.
And I definitely think everything that Oscar said is so important. I mean, I like those ideas a lot. I kind of feel for librarians who, they're not experts on what it is to be trans, and yet if you're an outsider, it's just so complicated. There are so many identities involved. There are so many points of view. That I would think, if I were a librarian, I would want to have like an advisory board of a whole rainbow of trans people who would, help me know what kind of books and materials our library needs to stock. So that, I mean, 'cause I remember once when okay, so where are we? 2013? No, 2012. So when I first started hearing about non-binary people and thinking, I wonder about non-binary. And I wanted to go and read a book about non-binary people, or read anything I get my hands on. And I went to the library and they had nothing. I looked up non-binary in the catalog. There wasn't anything. Mm-hmm. And so, it's kind of incumbent on, on the staff of a library to kind of be knowledgeable of what sort of topics would be of interest to, and that they need to obtain materials about.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we need more literature because we a lot of people start at public libraries because they are open spaces, and in a way librarians are seen as the information gatekeepers, so we definitely don't know everything.
Susie's point was wonderful, is just getting feedback from that community, just having an open forum of like, hey, what do you want to see? I think that's a huge step. That would be great.
I agree. Do you have any favorite reads or favorite movies or songs that have resonated with you or made you happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in a really cool time when there's like there's almost some kind of someone in a show or a movie, or it's not always the best representation maybe, but it exists, right? So one of my favorite examples is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the newer Netflix adaptation of She-Ra.
Mm-mm.
It is a wonderful cartoon. It's based off of like the She-Ra and He-Man from the 80s, but it's kind of revamped. And it's full of like body positivity and, just like, it's just wonderful. It's like just, friendship, and oh my God, it's so wholesome. It's so wholesome. But there's a character in there that they introduce named Double Trouble. And this character, they don't explain that this character is non-binary. They don't explain that this character is not a he or a she. Yes, Teresa, She-Ra is amazing. Uh, yeah, this character just comes in, and everyone right off the bat knows to call them they them, and it's never questioned. Nobody asks. This person never has to touch on the subject. It's just accepted. It is wonderful and mind-blowing, because I think a lot of times media try to like, they insert a trans character or something, and then they have to like have a backstory, and they have to explain. And as a trans person, it gets tiring, like explaining your identity. It's like you're coming out over and over again. So it's really refreshing seeing a character that is just them on screen. Everyone's accepting that this person is a them, and nobody says anything about it. It's part of the world, and I think that should be part of our world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to say I've never actually seen any trans representation where I look at it and say, yeah, that's like me. Um, uh, However, there are a bunch of real life people who I look at and say, wow, they're amazing. I want to know more about them. I'm so glad that they're in the world, that I can watch them. And so, and when you had sent out, Joy had sent out these questions ahead of time, I kind of made a list of the real life trans people that I admire. Let me dig that up. The people that I put on this list, so there's an author called Julia Serrano, who's very trans feminist, who has lots of thoughts about what it means to be trans, and I'm really impressed with her writing. There's another activist writer, Bryn Tannehill. Every time I see one of her articles in the media, I'm like, yes, you get them, Bryn. I am not embarrassed to say that I am an admirer of storyteller Jazz Jennings. I think she's an amazing storyteller, and a brave person, and somebody who to be willing to put her story out there so that millions of people can see it. And I think she's done an awful lot for the trans community. Politicians like Sarah McBride, who's a state senator from Delaware and who was an official in the Obama administration. Danica Rome was one of the first openly trans state legislators she's in Virginia. Then Lynne Conway, who is a computer scientist, famous computer scientist, who also has become a trans activist in her older years. There's a reporter named Caitlin Burns. Every time I see one of her stories, I'm like, I know I'm going to learn something really interesting about the world. And then Laverne Cox. If you haven't seen her movie Disclosure, if you haven't seen that movie, it's on Netflix. You definitely should see it. I mean, it opens your eyes to what the trans representation in media is like.
Yes, love Disclosure. It was so good and very eye-opening for me too. That not only are there, like you said, trans people are everywhere. You just might not know it. That when she went into, in in so many shows, there are so many trans people, but you don't know it. But the roles that they're playing very much fall into the kind of like, with Law and Order, SVU, kind of a very negative role. And so, yeah, I don't know what more to say about it, but it was a really, 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 really great documentary on Netflix. Also, the life and death of Marsha P. Johnson was a really good documentary too, that I learned a lot from that I didn't know before. Yeah. We've ran through every single one of my questions. I'm wondering if anyone on Facebook or YouTube have any more questions. Leave some space to see if any come in. We can stare at each other for a little bit. Okay. Well, it was so great to talk to you both again. I definitely want to do like 100 more human libraries when we open back up to the whole world.
Definitely. Oh my God, that was just so much fun. What a great idea. And thank you for putting this together and just doing this. This is really great. I really, really, really appreciate it. And it's really good seeing your face again and Susie's face again. I love Susie. I see her every now and then, and it's always a good face to stare at.
Stare at. Oh yeah, I am so appreciative for you to put this together. I always love a chance to talk to people about my story and find out what people are curious about. And it's always great to see Oscar. It's always a treat. Yeah, Oscar does not come out of his den very often, so when he does, I always feel privileged.
Yeah, O has asked, where can we follow you both and your work, if you would like to share?
Okay, so how would I do that? Like how would I, if I wanted to broadcast a link, how would I?
In the private chat.
Okay, in the private chat, I'm going to put the link to my blog.
Yes, and then Isaiah can highlight it.
I'm just going to go ahead and put my Instagram handle. I've put my entire transition story on this Instagram. So if you guys want to see that and how it all unfolded, like I do the whole like, this is my voice 1 year on T. And of course I sounded this voice 1 year on T is ridiculous.
Thank you for sharing. Oh wow, a last minute question just rolled in. Peggy wants to know, and it's a lot to unpack. Peggy wants to know, can you explain more about non-binary?
I can.
Go ahead.
It's very simple. There's not a whole lot to explain, luckily. It's somebody whose sense of themselves and their gender is not completely female and it's not completely male. It's something other than those two binary genders. So it's actually easier to describe in terms of what it's not than in terms of what it is.
Yeah, it's a matter of being comfortable. Both there's a struggle because you can be comfortable with both genders, like it's the right gender's a spectrum. You can be comfortable here. You can also be days where you're uncomfortable here, and so you kind of prefer to be more on this side of it. And it's very, very fluid, and you're just not exactly what it is. It's non-binary, right? You're not here and you're not there. you're constantly floating somewhere in the middle because that's just where you're comfortable, and you're like Susie says, it can be explained more what it's not.
For sure. Well, I want to thank you both again. I'd like to take this moment to highlight some of the upcoming teen programs. We have got the Knowledge Equals Youth Success Keys virtual info sessions every Thursday at 4 p.m. We've got a YA, a young adult book discussion of 5 Feet Apart on Thursday, March 18th at 4 p.m. I only saw the movie, but the book's probably better. We've got College 101, Preparing to Apply in the Age of COVID, on Thursday, March 18th at 7 p.m. And we have our Teen Action Group tag on Thursday at April 1st, April Fool's Day, at 4 p.m. And that's all. So thank you both so much again. And the next Up and Out is with UMD's LGBT Equity Center on April 14th at 4 p.m. And just thank you all. And I wish I could talk to you for like 5 more hours. It was really great to see you both. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And thank you, Isaiah, behind the scenes. Bye, guys.